There has to be a growth perception. There has to be an opportunity for every single child. There has to be a desire to eliminate avoidable suffering for every single person and family. I think that is the goal that we should pursue. One last word I cannot resist because Dr. Jaishankar is here. You know it fully well, I just want to state it for the record. When I hear even prominent channels, respected channels, whom I as a child revered, BBC for instance, or others, Hindu Nationalist Party, or India is becoming religious fundamentalist and all that. I want a message to go, I'm showing you, but and aggressively. If religion is taking us backwards, if it is obscurantist, if religion is saying women should be subjugated, they should have no reproductive rights, property rights, or marriage rights, they are subordinate, then we should oppose that religiosity. But today, whatever tradition is injected into the political discourse, it is to modernize our society and give women rights in every full measure. If religion is perpetuating caste system and inequality by birth, and saying some people are superior by birth, which was unfortunately a part of our tradition, then we should reject that. But if religion is saying the subalterns must rise, birth must not limit your future, everybody must have an opportunity in wealth creation, in skill promotion, in political leadership, in social participation, then religious discourse of that kind in politics is actually modernizing our society, modernizing our economy. I am an agnostic. I do not know if there is a God. I have a bit like India's former foreign policy of mutual non-interference. Of course, it still is a policy, but the non-interference. Now, I think in dealing with God, as long as God doesn't bother about me, I don't bother about God, and there will be mutual non-interference. But if religion is modernizing society, giving women rights of equality, elevating every single human being in this society, that religion I happily. If indeed there is something called religion, because ours is not really religion, it's a way of life. If Charvaka is a part of Hindu pantheon of saints, Charvaka, who was avowedly a godless man, if every single thought in the world has been embraced, if Satyam Ekat and Vipra Bahuda Vadanti is our catchphrase, this is not really religion. But even if you think it's a religion, if that religion is modernizing our society, I don't see what is the problem. I think the West has missed that point. The Western media has missed that point. You're articulating it, but please say it as loudly as you can. Thank you once again, and thank you for sparing your time, for being here. And on behalf of citizens of Hyderabad and this state, we welcome you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your wonderful message to the audience here. In fact, before our chief guest speaks, I request all the guests to put your mobile phones in the silent mode. Sir, I am just provoked to narrate a small speech of Mr. Narendra Modi. He said in Bhopal once, because that came for discussion in our house when I was MLC with regard to the Muslim reservation. The Narendra Modi ji said that इस देश में हिंदू और मुसलमान को लड़ना नहीं है, दोनों को मिलकर देश की गरीबी से लड़ना है, and that was his view. And I still remember, that's what you said. Thank you for reminding me and making. We are more than religious. We are nationalists. Believe we respect all religions. Thank you, sir. And now I request our chief guest today, Dr. Jaishankar garu, proud of every Indian here, and our foreign minister to kindly address us. Thank you.
My ministerial colleague, Shri Krishna Reddy Garu, my parliament colleague, Dr. Lakshmi Garu, our guest of honor, Shri Jayaprakash Narayana Garu, Shri Ramachandra Garu, dear friends. I'm really very, very pleased to be here today and to have once again an opportunity to share some thoughts with you. Before I speak about the topic, which is how foreign policy, the India way, has moved from diffidence to confidence, I want to remind you all, which you know already, that today is Hanuman Jayanti. And I say this because I regard Lord Hanuman as the greatest diplomat of all time. So, for me, each one of us visualizes him. I mean, for all of us, he is the ultimate Ram Bhakt. But certainly for those in my line of work, he has a very special meaning. I was tempted to make some comments on what you said, but it will take me away from the main thrust, but I'll come back to it. So let me come really to the topic, from diffidence to confidence. Beyond ASEAN, Gulf, Indian Ocean, Central Asia, but it goes all the way. And during COVID, we showed that even islands which were in the Pacific, islands which were in the Caribbean, countries where we don't even have embassies, but we still, at a moment of global difficulty, remembered all of them. The second difference from diffidence to confidence is today, if you ask me what is the single test with which I view, for me the ultimate test with view, I view a situation, a problem, a decision. For me, it begins with national interest and it ends with national interest. That it can be a very difficult situation. Sometimes it can put you, as Jayaprakash Narayanji pointed out, it sometimes can put you into a argumentative position with other countries. But for me, if I were to say, finally, if I have to make a decision, what is the basis? I think today our country is very clear about it. The welfare of our people, the interest of our society comes first. The security of our country comes first and foremost. And we are tested, we will be tested. He gave the example of buying oil from Russia after the Ukraine conflict. But that's not the only test. After 2017, when we restarted a group called Quad, again we came under a lot of pressure from a very different source. And we stood our ground. We stood our ground unlike what we had done before. Another difference I would say is, while national interest does for me be the fundamental core criteria of foreign policy, there is I would say ethical, moral, human dimension to what we do. And we speak about inclusive India. We speak about leaving no one behind. I think it applies in the world also. That there are countries, there are sometimes countries which are like us, they went through a colonial period. Maybe they did not recover, rebuild as quickly as we did. Sometimes these are small countries who don't have the capability of dealing with a crisis like COVID, maybe like the manner in which we did. So we have a moral obligation to these countries, and I think just like we should never forget the last person in our own country, we should also not forget the last person in the world, which is why we push today today when we say this era of confidence, we are a voice of the global south. The global south, which is about 125 countries in the world, these countries trust India to take up their cause, their positions in the world. Now there are other examples I can give you of confidence. One is, frankly, how to defend your borders more strongly, because we have challenges on our border, and the key to defending our borders is not to just posture in public. It requires a lot of homework. It requires building the infrastructure. It requires supporting the military. It requires creating systems which will respond whenever the border is under threat. An equally strong example I can give you is of countering terrorism. I will come to that in more detail. But the fact is, the defensive era, we accepted terrorism. Defensive era, we were angry, but we said finally, after Mumbai, the National Security Advisor of the previous UPA government wrote, we sat, we debated, we considered all the options. Then we decided to do nothing. Okay. We decided to do nothing, and his justification was, we felt the cost of attacking Pakistan was more than the cost of not attacking Pakistan. Okay. So I leave you to judge. But there is still another aspect, and that is how to use foreign policy for national development. I think increasingly, because I'm very much in agreement with what Jayaprakash Narayan Garu said, which is ultimately for us, we will be as strong in the world as we are strong at home. And for that, actually, foreign policy must be a vehicle to get capital, to get resources, to get technology, to get best practices, to get us most opportunities in the world. That to me is a good foreign policy. So when we speak about moving from an era of diffidence to an era of confidence, these are some of the aspects which I want to put before you. Now, you are listening to me and you are asking yourself, but this is very obvious. We must have always done this. Sadly, I have to tell you no. Okay. Now, I'm not saying this because I am trying to make my talk interesting. I actually want you to reflect on our own record of previous years. And why is it that in the past, when very difficult tests came, why is it that we didn't see it coming, we didn't prepare for it, when it came, we didn't respond to it strongly? I think this is a question, because this question even today matters, because as we heard about this whole issue of redistribution, and really there's a kind of control Raj which we are trying to revive, some people are trying to revive. The past has not gone away. The past is there, it is in the form of one particular political party particularly, but it is there and we must be aware of it. So let us look what was our record. Okay. So when we look at foreign policy, I think it's no secret, probably today, but I would argue not just today, for many, many years, our biggest challenge has been China. It has been China. We at times pretended it was not. We looked away, we rationalized it, we justified it, but the reality was actually from the very start, it's been actually the biggest challenge for us. Now I want some of you to appreciate. This is not something which we are realizing now. In 1950, in 1947, we became independent. 1949, there was a revolution in China. Communist Party came to power, and the Chinese PLA moved into Tibet. Okay. In 1950, one of the last things which Sardar Patel did was he wrote a letter to Nehru. Sardar Patel told Nehru, saying, I'm seeing all this analysis about China, how we are both Asian countries, we are going to be great friends. I am very worried. I actually think that today, for the first time in India's history, we are facing a two-front threat. And that we keep saying things to them that we are friends. I'm not sure they think in the same way. So I am cautioning you. This is Sardar Patel actually about less than 2 months before he passed away. The reply from Nehru was, no, you are very suspicious. He doesn't say you don't understand foreign policy, but that's... And then he says, it is inconceivable. It is inconceivable that the Chinese would ever cross the Himalayas and attack us. 12 years later, what he said was inconceivable happened. Now, why do I say this to you? I'm not fault finding. I am trying to make us all understand. When we look at the world, here was Sardar Patel, a very, very practical man, very grounded, very much with a feel for what life is about. I'm in Hyderabad. There can be no better, if any place should know what Sardar Patel did, this place should know. Okay. Now, the same Sardar Patel, with his sense of wisdom, practicality, he's actually he's anticipating what is coming in the future. But the person to whom he's addressing it is actually clouded by a kind of leftist ideology, which he says, today we and China, we to have a common interest in going up against the West, and therefore he is refusing to see what is actually a very practical, I would say basics of diplomacy. In diplomacy, every country has to be careful about its neighbors. And when you have two neighbors with whom you have potential or actual problems, those two neighbors will also get together. That is also very practical. You don't need a PhD in diplomacy to understand this. But yet, that is what happened. Now, I fast forward you from 1950 to 1962. Now the Chinese have attacked. What is inconceivable has happened. They have come down in Arunachal Pradesh. This is when Nehru has said goodbye to Assam and Northeast. And then he writes a letter to President John Kennedy of America. That letter is a public letter. Any of you can Google it, you can find it in the record. In that letter, he asked for assistance, and it was the right thing to do. Then he says there, but I am hesitant how much to ask you, because I don't know how it will look in front of other people. Country is under attack. Okay, Chinese have come down Arunachal Pradesh. You are actually saying bye-bye Assam. And then you are saying, but I don't know how I will look in front of other people. Just think today. Because when I said if you put your country's interest first, that is the one and only criteria by which crucial judgment should be made. Would you have said, I am under attack, but I don't know how I will look to other people, so only give me half of what I really need? Does this, what does it say? Now, some years before this how do I look in front of other people actually came in another context. There was a big debate at that time about UN Security Council. Okay? Even today, it's still a live issue. Countries offered India a seat, because the seat at that time, China's seat, was occupied by Taiwan. So many countries felt they didn't want People's Republic of China to occupy that. So they offered the seat to India. Now, our response at that time was, yes, we have such an offer, but first China should get its seat, After that, we will see what we have to do. Now, in case you think I'm not saying the truth, the source of this is Jawaharlal Nehru. He has written a letter to the chief ministers of all states. It's in his letters to the chief minister. So today, just imagine, we are talking of India first policy. He is saying China first in the UN. India follows after that. So not putting, when we say an era of diffidence, an era of diffidence is not just an era of diffidence. It is an era actually where we don't have clarity about our own national interests. That we somewhere we mix a certain ideological outlook, belief in what should be our contribution to the world, which is, I will also, we also do many good things for the world. But that cannot be at the cost of our national security. It cannot be at the cost of our national interest. For us, that is why India first, Bharat first, and Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam are two sides of the same coin. But we should never allow Bharat first to be compromised. Now, I've given you 3 examples on China. So let me switch to the other, the other side. Huh? So, now, our problem started right at the beginning. So the first year problem, and again, it's very interesting. This also goes back to Nehru and Patel. That if you see, Patel opposed our going to the United Nations on the Kashmir issue. And again, it's a very practical, he actually says, do not put yourself at the, at the judgment of other countries who have an interest in this matter. So, disregarding that, we went to the United Nations. And you all know what happened after that. So, when we today, as you know, today, there's a lot of interest about Pakistan occupied Kashmir. But we should not forget, how did the problem originate in the first place? Why, at what point of time, why did the Indian Army not complete its recovery operations? Why did we put ourselves under international pressure? Because that international pressure, which we opened the door for ourselves, continued from 1947 all the way till Article 370 was dealt with. Please understand the importance of what we did with Article 370. We have remedied, we have corrected an enormous mistake that we had made in 1947. And we created a lobby. We created a vote bank lobby. We created a Kashmiri lobby. There were people who were arbitraging that what was, you spoke about telling the Western press. I would show to everybody in the Western press one page of the Constitution. It says temporary provision. Do you know the word temporary in English language? It comes to an end. That is the meaning of the word temporary. But, there's nobody so blind as those who don't want to see. So, if you look at the 370 issue, here again, the earlier era, that somewhere, we must trust the world, we will go to other people, there are wiser people out there, we must subject our national interest to them. That is, now, Kashmir was one example. A second example actually, and again, it has taken this government, Narendra Modi's government in this tenure, to correct that mistake also. This is the Nehru-Liaquat Pact of 1950. Pakistan partition has happened. We can see the violence of the partition. How many people were killed during partition? And yet, we conclude an agreement with Pakistan that you will treat your minorities well and I will treat my minorities well, and this is an agreement between us. If he treated his minorities well, there would have been no partition in the first place. No, he went into partition with a mindset of not treating people of other faith well. Now, see the result of that. I mean, look at the dramatic decrease in the minority numbers there. So we finally were left with this situation where you had minorities in our neighborhood, which is actually a post-partition problem, whose only logical place to go is India. Where else would they go? And yet, when we do something very natural, very logical, we are actually correcting a mistake which we had made 75 years ago. It is made out as though, what kind of mindset have you people brought to bear on this? Arey, I am giving people rights. I am not taking away anybody's rights. I have not denied citizenship to anybody. I am telling people who have no other place to go that at least please come here and I will try my best. I will fast track and do whatever I can to help you. So this story can go on and on. I have given you a China version. I have given you a Pakistan example. Let me speak a little bit about the United States. Okay. Because now you will ask, saying, how many things can you get wrong? You got China wrong, you got Pakistan wrong. Okay. Again, history is very interesting. Coming here to this hall, I saw this big statue of Dr. Ambedkar. Now, I don't know how many of you know that when Dr. Ambedkar resigned from the cabinet, he actually gave two speeches. One speech he gave in the parliament, one speech he gave outside the parliament. Whenever you have time, look at it. Because Dr. Ambedkar in that speech actually brings out a very interesting foreign policy criticism. He says, when we became independent, we had no enemies. Yet within a few years, we have alienated a country like the United States. At that time, the most powerful country in the world, still is the most powerful country in the world. And we have alienated it not for our national interest. We have alienated it because we kept taking up China's cause with the United States. Okay. Now, this is not just Dr. Ambedkar. Even, Dr. Shama Prasad Mukherjee has similar views. At that time, Rajaji had such views. Sardar Patel again, he speaks about how, for us, a strong relationship with the United States is good for national development. When I said a good foreign policy is a foreign policy which actually propels growth, which gets us technology, which gets us resources. We have to understand that there were decisions and choices and positions which were made in the early years after independence, which actually created problems for us with the United States, which took many decades thereafter to sort out. So finally, on this I can go on. Okay, I've actually just written a book on this matter. If you want to read a longer account, please look at it. Just think of a country like Israel. Okay, people speak today saying, no, everybody is the same. We should not bring faith into any discussion. Israel became independent in 1948. From 1948 to 1992, we chose not to have an ambassador and an embassy in Israel. Why? Now, from 1992, we had an embassy. From 1992 till 2017, when Narendra Modi went to Israel, no Prime Minister of India ever visited Israel. Think about it. Think about it and then tell me that faith has no influence on our policy. What is this? Is this not vote bank? So forget domestic politics. I'm telling you my field. I'm telling you my field where critical decisions were actually made keeping in mind, I mean, today, the issues which are coming up for debate are not new issues. They are actually an honest description of people's record over the last 75 years. A record which is not only in domestic politics, which is not only in politics, which is actually much, which is almost for them part of their mindset and part of their ideology. And when we speak about ideology, the point with Jayaprakash Narayanji made, that you would have thought after the years of socialism, license Raj, control Raj, the crisis of 1991-92, all the effort, the challenges we had in doing this reform, you would think after this you don't want to do it again. But again now they want to do it. So think today the role actually of this, how much vichardhara actually shapes thinking. And when we speak about diffidence to confidence, the change is actually not just, somebody is strong, all that is there. It is actually a different mindset. It is the change in the mindset today which is making us act, think, behave, stand very differently. Now, a lot of that happened after 2014. But I will give you one example which happened even before 2014. If that is relevant to what I am saying. For many years, we prepared a nuclear option. In that era of diffidence, generally people say that, after all, we carried out our first nuclear test in 1974. Okay. But for almost 25 years after that, that diffidence did not allow us to make nuclear weapons. What did it take? It took a different government. It is not an accident that it was Atalji's government, NDA 1, which actually had the courage to take what was an option. It was ready to go. But the political leadership was not ready to go. The scientists were ready to go. So the difference has been really, what does it, when you change the mindset, the beliefs, the worldview, this is really today what is making us confident, what is making us Atmanirbhar, what is actually preparing us for the Amrit Kal and the 25-year journey ahead. Now, many things have changed in these 10 years. And it is those changes which I would say underline what are the different aspects of confidence. One, of course, is the economy. Because if the crisis of 1991-92 showed us, if the economy is bad, if the economy is crumbling, then best diplomacy, best military cannot save. We saw what happened to the Soviet Union. Now, 10 years ago, we were among what was called the fragile 5 economies, which was the world opinion was, if there's going to be a problem anywhere in the world, it will be among these 5. From fragile 5, we have today moved to 5th, and by all accounts, we will be moving very soon to the 3rd. One of my colleagues, in fact, made a reference even to defense. When we speak about economy, it's not just the quantity, it's not only the numbers. Actually today, the same country, the same people, same bureaucracy, same business, we had all got used to importing weapons. When the mindset changes, when the vision changes, when the leaders change, what happens? You start making weapons and you start exporting weapons. So, we talk a lot about Make in India. We talk a lot about Atmanirbhar Bharat. Please don't treat this as economics. It's not economics. it is actually a self-belief that every time, just think of some of the challenges. Look at COVID. In fact, again, a company in this city made a vaccine. Please remember how much that vaccine was attacked. And the basis for the attack was, this is made in India. This is made in India, good vaccines are made abroad. Look at something which all of us use every day, your telecom. How is it? Why is it that we imported 2G from Europe, 3G and 4G from China? But when we were ready to make 5G, once Modi ji said, no, I will not accept an imported 5G, you could make your 5G India stack. So what actually Atmanirbhar Bharat Make in India shows? That if there is a determination, if there is a leader, if there is a vision, if you push the system, if you tell them, no, I want you to go this way, I believe, you motivate the system, then actually people respond. If they can do telecom, if they can do vaccine, if they can go to the moon, at the difficult side of the moon, then you can imagine today what that confidence does. There is a direct connection between confidence and capability. The capability may be there, but if you do not have the confidence, if you are diffident, that capability will never ever express itself. So when we say today that we are looking at Amrit Kal, we are looking at Viksit Bharat, you need first of all that confidence to go on that Viksit Bharat journey. Without that confidence, if we do not believe in Viksit Bharat, if we are not willing to push ourselves in that direction, we will never be able to make that journey. But fortunately, I think today, we have reached a position where that is the case. I spoke earlier about terrorism as a challenge. It is still a challenge. It's a very big challenge, and I think when we look at the last many decades, I can't think of any country in the world which has been impacted so deeply by terrorism as we have. And sometimes, because something happened, we ourselves don't realize fully the gravity of it. Remember the day when the parliament was attacked. Okay? We remember it. But because the attack was not successful, we underestimate the seriousness of what could have happened. Suppose that attack had been successful. Suppose those people had actually got into parliament. Can you imagine what would have happened in our country? And then, can you think that our counter to terrorism policy was the cost of attacking Pakistan is less than the cost of not attacking Pakistan? So, if you have such a persistent and open, in Western countries, sometimes they make out as though, are you really sure that these people came from Pakistan? These guys are living in Pakistani cities. They recruit with big billboards in that country. It is like www.terrorism.pk.something. So it's open. And yet, we let it pass for so many years. So, once we started doing Uri, we did Balakot, we started pressing them on terrorism. You can see today. You can see, and it took confidence, let me tell you. I was not in the government when Balakot happened. I was in the government when Uri happened. We moved from diffidence to confidence when we crossed that line of control. And we did it again when we crossed the boundary to go and hit Balakot. So, now, I'm talking of the neighborhood, but this is also a globalized world. We have, so many Indians. I think each one of us knows somebody, has relatives, we ourselves go out so often. So we have to prepare for those challenges as well. The fact is today, there are almost about 2 crore Indians who live, and Indian nationals, Indian passport holders, who live and work outside India. About 1.5 crore who are citizens of other countries, with whom linkages. So here again, look at the responsibility that it gives to us. And you know, it's not a theoretical issue. We have seen it in COVID. We have seen it in conflicts in Ukraine. We saw it in Sudan. We saw it in Israel recently. How do we actually create systems? Because this much I can tell you. Modi ki guarantee doesn't stop at the borders of India. Modi ki guarantee is global. The people, the students who came out of Ukraine, the people who went to work in Sudan, there were researchers in Israel. Each one of them has actually been a Labharti of Modi ki guarantee. And guarantees work. Again, even at home. You know, if you are giving houses to people, if you are giving health access to people, you have to create a system. That, because this will, you know, we have to prepare for a world where things can go wrong. It will go wrong statistically. And we have to have a continuous ability to respond, react at very, very short notice. And you know, to change government, some of us have worked in it. It is very difficult to get, because people work in their own departments, you know, foreign ministry does foreign ministry, defense does defense, army does army, home ministry does. How do you get them all together? And how do you get them all together so well? I mean, you've been in home ministry, you know that within a matter of hours, you know, when Sudan fighting happened, within 24 hours our Navy and Air Force were there. So we have to, today when we talk about confidence, it's not enough to just have a strong belief. That strong belief must translate into reforms in the government, into different ways of working, into, as I said, confidence creates capability. But capability to be deployed needs systems. It needs reforms. It needs procedures. So that also has to be created in order for actually this to work at home. Now, this is a kind of a crisis situation. But in the world, in politics, you know, every day there's a problem somewhere. Every day somebody's asking you for something, somebody's sometimes giving you something, so you are negotiating. But part of how we today, how Bharat rises, is how do we actually deal with other countries? How do we get over, as I said, the hesitations, the ideologies, how do we put national interests and do what we have to do to actually go forward? Now, I have spent a long part of my career dealing with the United States before I became a minister, before I became foreign secretary. Now, I can tell you I've been through the difficult parts, difficult periods of our relationship. But if today things have changed, this too is an expression of that confidence. We deal with the United States much more confidently than we used to deal before. And I give you 2 examples. I spoke about the COVID period. At that time, actually the US had an embargo. US had said, they had invoked one law that until all American demands are met, no American company can give anything to any foreign consumer. Now, when we spoke to our vaccine companies, you know, and not just the final producer of the vaccine, but you know, there's a whole chain out there. And we were a group of 4 or 5 ministers, but this exercise, the pharmaceutical minister, who is now the health minister, Mansukh Bhai Mandaviya ji, and we sat and did video conferences. we actually saw that there was a whole supply chain which we would have to go and get unlocked. And this supply chain was basically an American supply chain. Now, here again, this was the confidence, which was, I had a Prime Minister who said, no, I am absolutely sure, go ask them, press them. And when you go there, I mean, he didn't say this, but he said, don't come back without the right answer. I mean, I got that message fairly clearly. And that, was finally what happened. That if you look at that period, yes, we were actually able to do two things. We were able to unlock the global supply chains because our persuasion, our diplomacy, our handling of other countries was very strong. And we in turn had a strong sense of obligation to the world. That if we benefited from global supply chain, we also had a moral obligation to support the rest of the world with vaccines. Now, I'm giving you a vaccine example, but I can give you, since we are speaking about defense, a defense example. Today, most countries have been very clearly told, you want to do defense business with India, you have to find a way of producing in India. Because I think Prime Minister recently in one interview, somebody asked him in the case of some other company. He said, look, I have no problem. People coming and setting up business. I have nothing against foreign products. But उसमें भारत का पसीना होना चाहिए. So, today, now what happens with many countries, if you tell them that, they'll say, no, I have IPR, I can't share it with anybody, it's very high tech, you guys are incapable of making it, one day we will see, till then you buy what we are giving you. That period, that era is now over. There is a very clear message. There is a very clear message that if you today want to deal with us, we expect that there will be a fair understanding. And that is, again, what a sense, it takes confidence to frankly negotiate toughly. And when the world sees that you are confident, let me tell you, the world is also very, very understanding. Now, this is about what comes in. But I think, Ramchandra Garu, you spoke about, you said there was an era of brain drain, and today it is a matter of pride. Yes, we have a lot of Indians going out. But again, I remind you, there's a responsibility which comes with it. Indians who go out should never be subjected to second-class treatment. This is a commitment that we have. That when they go out, we have to ensure that in that country, they get the right treatment, they get the right opportunities. So we have actually in the last few years negotiated with a number of particularly European countries, Australia, Japan, Malaysia, I think we are still negotiating with Malaysia, mobility agreements which ensure that when our skill, our talent go out, they are given exactly the treatment, again the same rights and obligations. Now, one part of it is you have an agreement, okay, you expect people to honor it, and they do by and large. But there are many situations when, particularly if you have blue-collar workers, they go out, many of them sometimes don't know their rights. Now, again, as I said, we must have a system. Now, in the last 10 years, we actually created a fund to deal with the kind of problems where the person concerned doesn't have the resources. That a worker who goes to the Gulf, who has an accident, somebody passes away, somebody has some legal problems, they don't know how to sort it. In the last 10 years, 3.4 lakh people have actually used this. Because once there is a system and you tell them that there is a system, they are able to actually do this. So I'm really sharing with you very, very different examples. And I want you to understand today that whether it is in terms of our economy, there are countries who want to access our market, nothing wrong with it. But, anybody who accesses our market must pay a cost for it. There must be something for us. As I said, Bharat first. That if they want to, if there is some great product, we have to find ways. That's how countries grow. That's how economies mature. We have to make sure today, how do we leapfrog in technology? How do we use international collaborations? How do we, most of all, create employment in this country? Not just employment, with the passage of time, quality employment. How do we ensure those who go abroad are protected? Now, again, one debate which is unfolding is that of connectivity. And it's interesting today how much interest there is in being connected to India. That there is, during our G20 presidency, a number of countries, but particularly this was an initiative called IMEC through Saudi Arabia. They wanted to connect India to Europe. Russia and Iran also want a connectivity passage to Europe. In the East, countries like Vietnam, Cambodia, they want a passage through Myanmar to India. So there is today a lot of interest today in somehow accessing India, to connect to India, to work with India. And it is the combination of all of this. It is the combination of all of this, and as I said, the stature which Prime Minister personally commands. I mean, I see that because I travel with him often, so I've seen it over a period of time. That when people speak about what happened, with the G20, I mean, to be very honest with you, when we got our G20 presidency, it was on the 1st of December of the year before, 2022. I think most of the world said, I don't know where you guys got stuck, how this is going to happen. You are going to have a really difficult time managing this. And yet, actually, when the G20 summit met, within the first day, we were actually able to forge a consensus. And it's worth thinking why. Because when something happens, we think it's natural. It's not natural. Something happens behind the scenes. You are only seeing the final production. But behind the scenes, there is a lot of work, and the fact is, when the G20 met, there was a lot of respect in the rest of the world for the Prime Minister personally and for Modi's Bharat. And I think no country wanted to actually block what they knew was a very, very important outcome, not only for us, was important for the world as well. So, in terms of what has changed, I will end with one last point. And that point, again, I come back to what some colleagues said. There are today only really two countries in the world, in a major way, who can be called civilizational powers. We are one of them. And our rise, when I say in the next few years we will be the third largest economy, that when in Amrit Kal for sure, in terms of the size of the economy, we will cross 30 trillion. Goldman Sachs has made a lot of predictions. There's a lot of material out there. But it's not just about economics and numbers. At the end of the day, we are people. And what we are is what defines us. But if we are to know where we are going, it's important that we know where we came from. And if a country which forgets its history, a country which neglects its culture, a country which disrespects its tradition, this is not a country that will ever be respected. So, I can say this. Today, when people respect us, yes, I get a lot of these noises from the Western press. And if they criticize our democracy, it's not because they lack information. It is because they think they are also political players in our election. That is the reason. You know, I read an article today where some Western media said, you know, it is so hot in India. Why are they holding elections at this time? Now, I read that article and I wanted to say, listen, in that heat, my lowest turnout is higher than your highest turnout in the best weather. And you think I've got a problem. That, you know, these are games which are being played with us. These are politics. These are our domestic politics which is going global politics which feels they must now intrude in India. You know, how can these chaps decide who should be ruling them without, you know, consulting us? You know? So they actually think they're part of our electorate. So I think it's time today that we disabuse them. And the best way that we do that, as I said, is by confidence. It is by confidence. It is by standing up to these kinds of attacks and criticisms and rankings and reports, you know, because they will question everything. You know, they will question your election system, your EVM, your election commission, as I said, even the weather, you know. And one complaint is, you know what, actually, just imagine BJP it's so unfair, BJP thinks it's going to win very big, you know. That, so, I mean, in a kind of way, today we are at a very important inflection point. The decisions we will be making are not just the decisions for the next 5 years. I think it will be giving our nation, our society, our coming generations a very, very big, this to me is a vote of confidence. It is the guarantee. The guarantee is an expression of confidence. It is an expression of confidence based on what we have delivered for the last 10 years. The manner in which we are regarded across the world in the last 10 years. The manner in which we are today preparing for the next 25 years. And this is really the mindset with which we need to approach the world. Once again, I thank you. You've all been very patient. And I very much appreciate the chance to come here.
Let us give a standing ovation to our guest speaker. Meeting is not yet over. We'll just sit patiently for 5 or 6 minutes. Some 2-3 questions will be there. After that, a vote of thanks will be there. And sir, they not only interfere in our weather and election system, but they also try to dictate whom to put in jail and whom not to put in jail. So before we start question answer, Mr. Abhishek and Mr. Naidu are going to present a small memento to our chief guest. Mr. Suryaprakash also. I request all. Now, no one should come near the dais. Meeting is not yet over. Our guest will be here for a few more minutes. And just one. Oh, Ramesh. Yeah. Some question, Mr. Jaishankar, former DGP, from retired DGP of state of Andhra Pradesh. I request him to ask a question. Mic, Babu, the small mic. Mic. Mic, hand mic. चलो सर मैं అక్కడి నుంచి అడగాను
కొంచెం వెనక్కి వస్తా
క్వశ్చన్ ఒకటి అడగండి because of paucity of time we have only one question here, only one question, sir.
Respected sir, I am Mr. Jaishankar, ex-Director General of Police. I have two small questions regarding the foreign policy in the neighborhood of India. The first one is that in the present scenario that Mr. Moizu of Maldives has come back with anti-India out and China in policy. What role to protect the Indian interests and trade and also the security? We have been closely following the aggression of China in the South China Sea, especially with reference to Philippines and Taiwan also. We had already sent or exported some BrahMos missiles to Philippines. Shall we be exporting our BrahMos missiles to other countries as well, maybe including Taiwan also? Thank you, sir.
One more. No. We have a small time and then Ramesh, introduce yourself.
Sir, namaste sir. I am Dr. Ramesh Kannaganti, did my doctorate from Delhi JNU School of International Studies, American Studies, sir. Wonderful time to recall your father, the strategic Pitamaha of Indian strategic culture, sir. The question is, sir, there are so many points, I would agree with you, sir. Only one clarification from you for the audience sake and to myself also. In the geopolitics of artificial intelligence, where does India stand? Because we are talking from a nerve center called Hyderabad, the IT capital. That's one thing, sir. The intent, content and character of India is very well displayed. That's why we got the connectivity, as you have mentioned, sir. So, I would like to request you to comment on the second point. In the Quad, Indo-Pacific has become very, very important in the days to come, sir. I request you to start many think tanks on strategic studies across India, given the 7516 kilometers of coastline and maritime security. Dr. Ramesh Kannaganti, great grandson of Kannaganti Hanumantu, sir, shot by the British in Palnadu, Guntur district. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Rajender.
Thank you. Let me very briefly say, I think it was mentioned earlier that you can choose your friends, but you can't choose your neighbors. Neighbors also can't choose their neighbors, so it's not only we who have this problem. So the fact is, in our neighborhood, we have many neighbors. Neighbors also have their politics. There will be ups and downs, there will be different groups out there. Sometimes in their politics, it is natural. We are the biggest neighbor, we will also become an issue in their politics. I think it's important to have a mature view of it. At the end of the day, let me tell you, there is economics at work, there is geography at work, there is history at work, there is people at work. I mean, if you look at any of our neighbors, if you see how many of them either do business with us or come for education, come for medical, these are all factors. So I would urge you not to be carried away by headlines. Sometimes in real life, things are much more sober and much more practical. And I think we will find answers in that. Secondly, on the BrahMos, I think this is a very good example today of how Make in India and Defense has got us an important contract. But it's not just BrahMos, it would be other equipment as well. I think this is a new area that India is entering. It is one where particularly from Prime Minister, there has been, Modi ji has been very strongly motivating our defense producers, saying, we are good enough today to go out in the world. So I'm very confident that our defense exports will grow. And finally, on the AI, I just want to say one thing. What is AI? AI is to predict your thinking using your data which you have made available. Right? So, one of the most important things is, where is your data going? Now, a big difference in the era of confidence as opposed to diffidence. Today, we are ensuring that Indian data is staying in India, that Indian data is not being used and accessed by people whose interests may be against our security out there. So this is also something which is, the whole digital, AI, cyber is something where, again, there has been some very big decisions which we have made, and I think in the coming years we will continue to make.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, vote of thanks by Mr. T.R. Srinivas.
Good evening. On behalf of Forum for Nationalist Thinkers, I would like to thank our Union Minister for External Affairs, Dr. S. Jaishankar ji, who is also our Sankat Mochan for our international diplomacy. Thank you, sir, for the great insightfuls and the deep dive into the Indian foreign policy, and in your style, calling a spade, as we say in IPL. Thanking the guest of honor, Sri Jai Prakash Garu, thanking the Union Minister for Culture, Sri Kishan Reddy Garu, thanking the Honorable MP, Dr. Lakshmi ji, and thanking, last but not the least, the founder of Forum for National Thinkers and the Honorable ex-MLC, Sri Ramchandra Rao ji. Thank you so much.
चलो